Hey, Cal Ewing here, and I want to talk a little bit about the Canadian real estate market, at least my experience of the Calgary market where I live. Um, I've never been a big picture guy when it comes to real estate markets because I feel like there's a lot of factors at play in any market. I've always looked at deals based on the small market, so neighborhood level, uh, based on comparable properties, comparable sales, what rents are in the area over the last 6 to 12 months. I've never really been a speculator as far as trying to predict which markets are going to appreciate, where the real estate market's headed. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? As we've seen with COVID in the past couple of years, people thought that the pandemic was going to maybe have a negative impact on real estate, but what we saw was almost every major market went up very quickly. Now we're seeing very high interest rates over the past year, which is impacting markets in various ways as well. So I'm not claiming to ever be a big picture market guy, a market predictor. But my thoughts on Canadian real estate, having lived in Calgary for much of my life and working now as a mortgage underwriter here in Canada, my experience is that most of the people in Calgary and area, a lot of wealth was gained over the past 20 some years, even more. And a lot of that's because of oil and gas. But if you look at Vancouver, British Columbia, all over British Columbia, a lot of places in Ontario, a lot of wealth was gained through property appreciation. So a lot of people bought houses, and then their houses just kept going up and up and up in value. And what I've noticed from the Canadian landlord perspective over the past few decades is there's good landlords out there that know how to crunch their numbers, and buy deals where the numbers are going to make sense for them, regardless of what the market does, and particularly factoring in and basing their investments on cash flow. But there's a lot of people that were more speculators, where they could get by with buying condos and rental properties, and they didn't even have to make really a lot of sense. So they could even be losing money every month. They may have to actually pay out of pocket to afford their loan on their rental property or afford some of the expenses. But it didn't really matter because in a few years, that property value was going to go up so much that they'd easily recoup their losses and make some really great profits. And even on people's personal residences, if they bought at the right time, a few decades ago or even a decade ago, they're sitting on a lot of good equity, right? So there's wealth being built just by owning property. But I sort of feel like in the last little while, things might be turning with high interest rates. We might not be seeing that kind of appreciation anymore in Canada. And looking at BC, man, even in like lower mainland, in through the Kootenays, some of those areas, like Revelstoke area and that kind of thing, properties are so expensive. It's insane how much. Like, I don't think you can find a property in British Columbia for less than like 700,000, and that's sometimes even in the middle of nowhere. And so I'm talking to more and more landlords in Canada that they're having trouble because the only way that they can make money on their rentals is they got to put in basement suites, and that kind of thing to basically turn their rental into a duplex in order to earn enough rental income to make the deal make sense, when they have to factor in the purchase price of the property, which is crazy high, plus high interest rates on their loans if they're financing the deal, which most are. So it's really hard to make real estate investments, rental property investments, make sense here in Canada in most markets. And so now that we can't necessarily bank on appreciation, which I don't think we can anymore, I might be wrong, but it doesn't make sense to buy a rental property and lose money anymore because you're not going to make up for your losses with at least short-term appreciation. And so what I'm getting at is, this is one of the reasons why I've been focused on US real estate for my whole career, is the numbers just make a lot more sense. You can still find properties where you can buy them at a decent price and they're going to cash flow. So even when you factor in your repairs and vacancies and all of that, and your financing costs, you're actually going to make money at the end of the day. And you don't even have to put in a basement suite or find some way to get more income coming into the property. You can just buy the property and rent it out. Okay, so that's one thing. Obviously, I'm mostly into mortgage notes and mortgage note investing. And these kind of deals are not even found in Canada. I don't even think it's possible, except for if you do a seller financing deal. You can't buy mortgage notes, from what I know, from banks in Canada. So you've got that whole avenue of generating cash flow in the US where you can acquire notes for a small amount of money, $20,000, $30,000, and get a really, really nice return on them. And then appreciation, there's still markets in the US, I think, even though we are definitely not going to be seeing the kind of appreciation that we've seen in the last couple of years, 2 years, where every market has just skyrocketed. But I do think that there's still opportunity to buy a property at an affordable price where it's going to cash flow and you can actually rent it out and make money, but also get appreciation out of it. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the Canadian market. I think that the wealth building strategy that most of us Canadians have had over the past 20 years of just owning property and your wealth will come might be coming to an end. And it's time to look at other ways of making money with real estate. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your opinions. Like I said, I'm not a big market guy. I'm not a huge big picture market guy. So if you think otherwise, I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe I'll learn something. Take care.